With the Carolina Panthers coming off of their third straight victory against the New York Jets, although not nearly as impressive offensively, the defense, on the other hand, has made huge strides despite much wide range criticism. But going into this week's matchup, the Panthers gained a few pieces, but yet lost a major piece. And the question's asked, is this a setup for a backup to succeed? Find out why that may be the case and why it may not be the case on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Growlers. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Of course, you're growling with the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And guys, I must tell you, I'm in a pretty darn good mood. And many of you are probably wondering, why is that? Because ultimately, many of you may not know, but there was news that came out that Bryce Young was more than likely going to be absent from this game. But then all week we've been, given pause to think that Bryce may actually play in this game. Saying that there was opportunities for him that probably be able to play. But as we've seen, there have been stories coming out that he did not practice, and unfortunately, it's showing that he's shown progress. But if there's an opportunity, he may play. But I think ultimately, I would say no. That's where I would go. I would definitely lean towards him not playing, even though Bryce said, I'm just trying to take progress, trying to be better each day. There's definitely been progress, and I'm going to give all my trust and faith in the training staff and continue to do my part as to whatever it takes. But yeah, Andy's expected to get the start, and I'm hoping when we start looking, I hope Bryce continue, because really when Bryce got better, it was when he watched what Dalton did. But then here's the other thing. Canellis has got to do a better job play calling. He started to call more things that went down the field. Now, here's the reality. Maybe Bryce has got to get accustomed to saying, okay, let me look off the safety and take the shot like Andy Dalton did last week. And if those of you did not watch the end of the Jets game, the throw that put the game out of reach was Dalton heaved one down the field. You could have argued it was in double coverage, but the help came over late, and Leggett was able to go up at the moment against one guy and snag it. I think ultimately we have to remember the matchups we have out there. Sauce Gardner's amazing, and he had Ted McMillan wrapped up. But unfortunately for the Jets, and Canellis has got to remember this, you've got to call the plays knowing where Sauce Gardner is going to be. You've got about 5 or 6 other corners in the league that's going to shut Ted down no matter how great he is. Or you got to have the faith, Bryce, that you can fling it up high enough that Sauce can't, and that Sauce can't be even a factor in that, and that Ted can body him away and go up, because ultimately we've seen Mike Evans officially be done for the year, more than likely. So this is Ted's chance to become the big dog here in this division. Not Drake London. Not Chris Olave. But getting back to the game at hand against the Buffalo Bills, I was listening to several podcasters that talked about how this defensive front was going to get better with the Larry Ogunjobi returning to this lineup. I ultimately think that this Buffalo Bills defense is the only weak link, because ultimately when you look at Buffalo, they can run the ball and they can also throw the ball. But you got to come to a realization of what it is you need to stop. And you cannot play around with this football team. You have to be willing to go out there and you have to be able to put pressure on Josh Allen. Although I will say this, what made Buffalo dangerous early on was the fact that they were running the football and people were going out there thinking, we got to stop Josh Allen. So literally, they would only rush 4 to 5 guys. And that left Cook out there gashing and dashing. And ultimately, that is not what you want to see coming at your defense as a running back full steam ahead. And you have to come to a realization, if you're any defense facing off at the Bills, you've got to realize that you cannot come out there with just all eyes on Josh Allen, because he can beat you. And the one thing that makes me pause with Ichiro Avero's defense is Josh Allen, when he sees the defense has its back turned, he loves to go after you with his legs. You cannot turn your back to this guy. You have to press him. You have to get him in a position where, number one, he's uncomfortable. Number two, you got to get him in a position where he's got to look at that defense and wonder. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of faith in Ross Boom and Trevin Wallace's coverage skills. Although it's improved, I think ultimately we need to go back to that 3 safety look and put Lathan Ransom in there as a spy, or Trevon Moehrig at that spy position. Because ultimately, when I look at this Bills team, they're going to run the football or attempt to run the ball. They haven't been able to run it as of late, but they've made some uncharacteristic mistakes here recently that does make you pause. When you look at how Buffalo lost to the Falcons, and then the Falcons had a really bonehead loss last week, and then they had a 23-20 loss to the Patriots. It just leaves you to, what are we doing here? Not to mention when you look back at this team and you say they drafted TJ Sanders and Deion Walker, and it makes you wonder, where's this at? Now, granted, TJ Sanders is on IR, and as I said, they're going to possibly get Daquan Jones and Larry Ogunjobi back this week. But ultimately, they've had a lot of problems stopping this running attack, and it makes you wonder, can they get this fixed in time? Now, I can't sit here and say it's all going to fall on the fact that Larry Ogunjobi was out. You ultimately have a defense that is just like the Kansas City Chiefs. They built this defense to keep people from coming back. But see, you're getting offensive coordinators that understand we don't want to get out of games. We want to play them to stay in so that it plays into the biggest weakness that they have. Much like the Kansas City Chiefs, you can run the football. As I've said many a times, you can look at a football team and you can ask, what are a team's biggest rankings? What are a team's worst? You got a Buffalo Bills team that is arguably one in the bottom 10 stopping the run. But you have the Carolina Panthers, who are in the top 14. Arguably top 10, depends on what the stats look like after the night. But then you got the Panthers, who are right there in the top 5 in rushing the football. And here's the thing. We get back a huge piece. And Robert Hunt, there has been some talk that he could play this season. But looking at this Carolina Panther offense and looking at what they're getting back this week with Damian Lewis, and then you put Corbett back on the bench and you leave Brady Christensen in there, who's been playing. This is where I need people to understand. When Brady Christensen came off the bench a week ago, no, 2 weeks ago, before Damian Lewis had that issue, Rico Dowdle started, but you guys don't realize that the catalyst for his going off was Brady Christensen. Brady Christensen is an excellent puller as a guard because he's played tackle before. Too many times, once again, Dowdle not doing a good job settling in behind him. There's still times where Christensen is getting on the perimeter. Dowdle's choosing to go inside when all he's got to do is go inside out. He can take that thing to distance. Just saying, y'all. Just saying. Not trying to criticize him too much. But at the end of it all, we're going to need everything that we can get because, needless to say, this is a Buffalo Bills team that's got a decent defense, but their offense is sus. It is suspect. We got to be able to take advantage of this. They've got some really big young pieces on that defense, but unfortunately for them, they have not got them, going yet. Now they do have a pretty darn good secondary. However, it can be had when you start looking at what they have, and then looking at what we have in the receiving room. I love having Jimmy Horn out there. I think Jimmy Horn has just opened up so many things for our offense, and now with the addition of Jalen Colker and Jatavian Sanders, you've got a guy who can just absolutely torch defenses and give them something extra to look at in the running game as well as the passing game. I hope that Dave Canellis doesn't stray too far from Tommy Tremble and Mitchell Evans, because ultimately these are two guys that have consistently shown what they can do. Now, I will say this, that they need to use Jatavian Sanders down the field more. And of course, as I said, Bryce Young still has the doubtful designation there. And to me, what I think is going to happen, I know a lot of you are not going to agree with it, but if we can start running the football and Ted McMillan can get down the field one-on-one against Tre'Davious White or Christian Benford, I think this is going to be a huge advantage for the Panthers. Now, these guys are good players, but they're not going to be able to withstand the 6'4" athlete that is Teteroy McMillan, and not to mention a guy in XL who is slowly starting. It looks like he's starting to feel himself now. And when he can do that and play with confidence, guys, don't forget last year. Before that drop in the Eagles game, he was really starting to feel himself. If we start, I'm going to tell you, if he catches a touchdown this week and he starts that horse riding, look out. And I'm hoping Andy Dalton is going to get Bryce to understand. Stop overthinking it. Now, I get it. A lot of people are going to try to stop those very same plays that Bryce ran last season. So that's where Dave Canellis has to do something different. Now, if you're going to look at a weakness, you got to look at where Damian Lewis is and where this defensive front for the Buffalo Bills is. And the truth of the matter is when you can start truly breaking down a defense, whereas you got Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa, and you look right at where the outside is, and you've got big guys like Taylor Moton and Ike Ekwonu. One thing that drove me crazy last week is everybody was chastising Chuba Hubbard versus Rico Dowdle. Well, Chuba only got one toss play, and Rico got 3. To me, the weakness in this, and I think I was listening to, I don't remember who it was, the play-by-play guy was that for the game, but he kept saying, make guys like Sauce Gardner tackle running backs. That's what you do. When you can start making a defense stretch or stretching a defense that already does not like to defend the run, it makes those holes or those gaps on the inside wider. It stretches them out because they have to be aware of that. Canellis is going to have to make sure he calls that at least once or twice a drive. And a lot of people say, oh, that's too much. No, it's not. You make the defense have to go. Now, I know a lot of people going to say, well, you're making your line go too. True. That's why you make it the first play of the drive. Because here's the thing. Whether people want to admit it or not, yes, linemen do get tired, but the defense gets tighter, especially when the drive goes longer. Defensively, I think we definitely have Tershawn Wharton. I don't even understand why this guy is still starting. I really don't, because A'Shawn Robinson, Derek Brown, and Bobby Brown are playing their butts off. A'Shawn Robinson should not even be out there on first and second down. That should be Bobby Brown, period. Derek Brown is finally, looks like he's starting to really, really, really get back to 100%, and it's fun to watch. DJ Wanham's starting to really come into. Nick Scorton has really started to play well. He's really starting to flourish in his new role. I'm really starting to enjoy watching this guy, and if he can really start to step into his own, this could be a guy who could really push for a Pro Bowl bid. Maybe not this year, but possibly next season. And I'm not saying that to be funny. That's true. This guy's really starting to understand what it is he's got to do. Even Princely Emmanuel last week, even though you had two quarterbacks that have a notion to hold on to the ball, but you look at it, both of these guys got a sack and a half as rookies. I mean, could this be a turn of the corner for the remainder of the season? I'm going to tell you, Josh Allen may find out the hard way. I'm not saying this offensive line as Buffalo's is bad, but I'm going to be honest with you, to standing back there, waiting on things to materialize, especially with the way this defense is starting to play. And then J.C. Horn, I can tell you right now, I know Josh Allen doesn't just stare down a guy, but I can tell you one guy that's probably not going to be available for him, and that's Keon Coleman. And I know a lot of people, including my son, are going to say he doesn't need Keon Coleman. We may have to find out. We may have to find out. But, of course, I got the Panthers edge in this one. I think the running game blows up again, despite the fact the Bills have had 2 weeks. And I think Dalton is going to be able to make a couple of big plays. Excel, Jalen Coker is going to get in there and do his thing. I even think JT Sanders does. I think Andy Dalton's going to be able to stretch the field, and I think it's going to open up a new dynamic for this Panthers offense when Bryce comes back. And I just think Bryce needs to actually see what it looks like. I think that's ultimately why he had such a successful finish to the year last year, is that Dalton was the one who showed him how it can be effective and work. But needless to say, I think the Bills are going to fall into this, this issue of being able to stop the run. I think they get two of their pieces in the interior back, but I think Carolina's just got a superior offensive line that they've not ran into, and they're going to get into a shootout. But I think this doesn't favor Buffalo, because needless to say, when you're running the ball, as opposed to running the ball, as opposed to throwing the ball, you have to be perfect all the time, as opposed to when you're running, you just keep laying on the D, and it just wears you out. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think the boys, what are we in, black or blue this week? Black? Either way, are going to prevail over the Bills in a close game, as the Panthers have their first 4-game winning streak since 2017? But guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think we knock off the Bills? And Buffalo Bill fans, I'd love to hear from you. Do you think we're going to be able to have a chance against y'all, as Charlotte is also known as the second home for the Buffalo Bills? Also, make sure you guys comment and hit the bell notification down below. Guys, I've got so many people watching the show, but I don't have enough of you guys subbed. If you're watching the show and you're not subbed, please sub and hit the bell notification so you can get notifications when I come out with a show. Make sure you go to the Facebook group at Growling and Prowling, as well as the Facebook page Growling and Prowling, and add us as a friend. Finally, if you want to get to know me on a more intimate and personal level, go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can keep up with all the reels and shorts that I will be caught up in. But until the next time, be sure to leave your mark while prowling the airwaves and growling out. Keep pounding.